Every woman tests a man not with words, but with behavior. And if you don't understand what she's really doing, you'll fail without even realizing it. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to watch for when a woman wants to give you her body, her time, and her complete feminine surrender. She won't announce it with words. She won't say, "I'm ready." Instead, her actions become louder than her voice. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice the signs. Soft, delicate signals wrapped in emotion, psychology, and instinct. Now here's the part most people don't talk about. These signals are easy to miss, not because they're complicated, but because they're subtle. And subtlety requires presence. So before we go any further, I want you to pause for a second and really think. Have you ever felt like a woman was into you, but you couldn't quite prove it? Or maybe you realized it too late, after she pulled away. If that's ever happened to you, I want you to comment, "I missed the signs," below. Not because it's a failure, but because awareness is where everything changes. And if you've already noticed some of these signals before, type, "I see it now." Let's make this interactive, because the more you engage, the deeper this will click for you. I'm Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. Every woman is different. Her personality, her past, her confidence level, these all shape how she expresses attraction. But underneath those differences, there are patterns. Not learned behaviors, not scripted responses, but biological and psychological reactions that happen before she even has time to think them through. And the first thing you'll notice isn't what she says. It's how she exists around you. A woman who feels nothing for you maintains distance, not necessarily in a cold way, but there's a boundary, a kind of invisible line she doesn't cross. Her energy stays contained, her attention is divided, you're just there. But when she's drawn to you, something shifts. It's subtle at first, almost unnoticeable unless you're truly paying attention. She begins to drift closer, not in a dramatic way, but in small, consistent movements, sitting slightly nearer than necessary, lingering a moment longer in conversation, positioning herself within your space without needing a reason. Think about a time when you were in a group setting, maybe a gathering, a casual event, or even just sitting with friends. There's always movement, people shifting, conversations overlapping. Now imagine one woman in that space who keeps ending up near you. Not directly, not obviously, but repeatedly. That's not coincidence. That's attention guided by attraction. And here's where psychology comes in. When a woman is emotionally and physically drawn to someone, her nervous system becomes activated. Not in a stressful way, but in a heightened awareness. Her body is literally orienting toward the source of that feeling, you. This is rooted in something called attentional bias, where we unconsciously give more focus and physical alignment to what emotionally stimulates us. You'll see it in her posture, her feet angled toward you, her shoulders open in your direction. Even when she's talking to someone else, a part of her remains tuned in to where you are. But closeness alone isn't the full picture. It's the comfort that comes with it. When a woman starts to feel safe around you, her defenses lower. And this is critical, because attraction without safety creates tension. But attraction with safety creates openness. Her voice softens, not artificially, but naturally. She laughs more easily. There's less hesitation in her expressions. You'll notice that she becomes more fluid, less guarded, less controlled. I once worked with a client who told me about a woman he was seeing casually. He said, "She's so different with me compared to others. With them, she's composed. With me, she's playful, relaxed, almost vulnerable." That difference? That's emotional safety mixed with attraction. And then there are the eyes. A lot of people think desire looks like bold, unbroken eye contact, like something out of a movie. But real psychology tells a different story. One of the strongest indicators of genuine attraction is actually the break in eye contact. She looks at you, and then quickly looks away. That moment, small, almost invisible, is incredibly powerful, because it reveals something she didn't plan to show. Her nervous system reacted before her mind could filter it. It's not indifference, it's intensity. When someone feels nothing, they can look at you casually, without interruption. But when there's emotion, especially desire, it creates a kind of internal pressure. And that pressure makes sustained eye contact harder, not easier. You might catch her glancing at your lips while you're speaking, or touching her hair, her neck, even adjusting her posture slightly. These aren't rehearsed actions. They're self-soothing behaviors. her body trying to regulate the emotional stimulation you're creating. And here's something important to understand. Attraction is not loud. It's not always confident. In fact, the strongest attraction often comes with a kind of nervous energy. Because when something matters, we feel it more deeply. Now let's go deeper. When a woman begins to trust you, not just casually, but emotionally, you'll notice a shift in what she shares. It's no longer surface-level conversation. She starts opening up, not everything at once, not dramatically, but in layers. She might tell you about something that hurt her in the past, a fear she doesn't usually talk about, an insecurity she rarely admits. She might tell you about something that hurt her in the past, a fear she doesn't usually talk about, an insecurity she rarely admits. And this is where many men misunderstand the situation. They think attraction is purely physical, but for a woman, emotional safety is the gateway to physical openness. She will not fully give herself, her time, her presence, her body to someone she doesn't trust on a deeper level. So when she starts sharing these pieces of herself, she's not just talking. She's asking, without words, "Are you someone I can feel safe with?" And how you respond in those moments matters more than anything else. Do you listen or do you interrupt? Do you hold space or do you dismiss? Do you stay present or do you try to fix? Because she's not looking for perfection. She's looking for emotional steadiness. And when she feels that from you, something begins to unlock. She starts imagining you in her world, not in a fantasy sense, but in a grounded, real way. She might ask questions like, "What would you do if?" or "Have you ever thought about?" These aren't random, they're explorations. She's trying to understand how you think, how you react, how you show up. Because giving herself to someone truly requires certainty. Not logical certainty, but emotional reassurance. And here's the truth most people overlook. By the time a woman shows obvious signs of desire, she has already gone through an internal process of evaluation. She has already considered whether you are someone she can trust, respect, and feel safe with. So if you're waiting for something bold, something undeniable, you might already be too late. Because the real signals happen quietly, in the space between words, in the moments most people ignore. And if you've ever experienced that feeling, that subtle shift, that quiet pull, it wasn't your imagination. It was her, speaking in a language most people never learn to hear. And in the next part, we're going to go even deeper into the emotional reactions, the push and pull, and the powerful psychological patterns that reveal when a woman is not just interested, but internally struggling with how much she wants you. Part of her is drawn to you, deeply, emotionally, even physically. But another part of her is trying to stay in control. Why? Because attraction, especially strong attraction, creates vulnerability. And vulnerability carries risk. Risk of rejection, risk of being misunderstood, risk of getting hurt. But this is one of the clearest psychological indicators that her feelings are stronger than she's comfortable admitting. This is what we call emotional push and pull. And no, it's not manipulation in the way people often assume. It's internal conflict. Part of her is drawn to you, deeply, emotionally, even physically. But another part of her is trying to stay in control. Why? Because attraction, especially strong attraction, creates vulnerability. And vulnerability carries risk. Risk of rejection, risk of being misunderstood, risk of getting hurt. So her mind tries to regulate what her body and emotions are already experiencing. Risk of rejection, risk of being misunderstood, risk of getting hurt. So her mind tries to regulate what her body and emotions are already experiencing. She might take longer to reply to a message, not because she's uninterested, but because she's trying not to seem too available. She might act distant for a day, then come back more engaged than before. She might challenge you, question you, or even create small emotional tests. And here's where most men make a critical mistake. They react to the surface behavior, instead of understanding the underlying emotion. They assume disinterest, inconsistency, or games. But in reality, this behavior often signals something much deeper. She cares, enough to feel uncertain, enough to hesitate, enough to protect herself. Let me give you a real-life example. A woman I once spoke with described meeting someone she felt an instant connection with. She said, "I liked him more than I expected, and that scared me. So I started pulling back, not because I didn't want him, but because I didn't want to lose control of how I felt." That's the paradox of desire. The stronger it is, the more carefully it's managed. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. When a woman is deeply attracted to you, she begins observing you, not just casually, but intentionally. She studies your reactions, your tone, your patience, your consistency. She's not just asking, do I like him? She's asking, is he safe for me to feel this way about? And this is where your emotional stability becomes everything. Because attraction might open the door, but trust determines whether she walks through it. You'll notice she starts asking deeper questions. What do you value in a relationship? What does trust mean to you? What do you do when you're upset? These aren't casual questions, they're psychological mapping. She's trying to understand your emotional landscape before she fully lets you into hers. And while she's doing all of this, her behavior toward you becomes more intentional. She adjusts her appearance around you, fixes her hair, reapplies lip gloss, straightens her posture. Now, this isn't about vanity, it's about awareness. When a woman desires someone, she becomes more conscious of how she's perceived, specifically by that person. She wants to feel seen and desired by you. And here's something subtle, but incredibly telling. She treats you differently than everyone else. Small things you say might affect her more than they should. Not because she's fragile, but because she's invested. And that brings us to another powerful signal that many men overlook. Quiet jealousy, not dramatic, not confrontational, but noticeable. A pause when another woman is mentioned, a slight change in tone, a moment of withdrawal. This isn't about control, it's about emotional investment. A woman doesn't feel that shift over someone she sees as temporary. She feels it when she's already imagining something more. And then there's touch, not obvious, intentional touch, but small, almost accidental moments. A brush of her hand, adjusting something on your shirt, letting her arm linger against yours. And here's what matters most. Does she pull away or does she stay? Because continuation of contact is communication. It's her body saying, this feels okay, this feels right. And if she leans in, even slightly, that's not just comfort, that's permission. But here's where many people get it wrong. They assume these signals mean certainty. They don't. They mean potential. They mean openness. They mean she's moving closer, but still observing, still feeling, still deciding. And this is where your response matters more than ever. Not in what you say, but in how you are. Are you grounded? Are you patient? Are you emotionally steady? Because right before a woman fully opens herself, emotionally and physically, she tests something very specific: your consistency under pressure. She might become emotional. She might challenge something you say. She might express emotion in a way that feels unexpected. And this is not her trying to create problems. This is her trying to find answers. Because if she's going to trust you with her vulnerability, she needs to know you won't collapse under it. And when she sees that strength, that calm presence, something shifts. In the final part, we're going to explore the deepest level of this connection. The quiet signs that show she's no longer holding back. The subtle ways her body and behavior align, and how to respond in a way that builds real, lasting intimacy instead of losing it at the final moment. There's a stage in connection that feels almost quiet. No dramatic signals, no intense back and forth. Just a calm, steady presence. And this is where most people make a critical mistake. They assume the excitement is gone. They assume the attraction has faded. But in reality, this is where attraction matures into something far more powerful: emotional safety. A woman who once felt nervous around you now feels at ease. The same energy that made her glance away shyly now allows her to hold your gaze just a little longer. You'll notice it in the silence between you. Not the awkward silence where both people are searching for something to say, but the comfortable silence where nothing needs to be said at all. You'll notice she doesn't rush to impress you anymore. She's not trying to perform, she's just being. And that's one of the most powerful shifts of all. And when she feels accepted, she begins to reveal herself more fully. This is where her curiosity about you becomes more intimate. She starts asking questions that go beneath the surface, not to fill conversation, but to understand you. How do you handle being hurt? What does love mean to you now? What kind of connection are you really looking for? And here's something incredibly important. As her emotional trust grows, her physical boundaries begin to soften, not suddenly, not recklessly, but naturally. She stands closer. Her body aligns with yours without hesitation. Her touch lingers longer than before. She becomes more relaxed in your presence, allowing proximity that once would have felt too intimate. And these moments matter because a woman is extremely selective about her personal space. Where she allows you physically reflects where she trusts you emotionally. Now you might notice something else. Her availability changes, not because she has more time, but because she chooses to give it to you. She makes space in her schedule. She stays up longer than she planned. She responds with intention instead of delay. And this is important because attention is one of the clearest forms of emotional investment. People don't consistently give their time to something that doesn't matter to them. So when a woman starts prioritizing you, that's not casual. That's a decision forming internally. Her body begins to reflect what her mind has already decided. Her breathing slows around you. Her posture relaxes. Her expressions soften. These are physiological responses. Her nervous system is regulating itself in your presence. And that only happens when there's a deep sense of safety and attraction combined. You might catch her lips parting slightly when she's focused on you, her pupils expanding, her movements becoming slower, more intentional. These aren't conscious choices, they're instinctive. And they reveal something her words might never say directly. She desires you. But more than that, she trusts you with that desire. And that's where everything changes. Because at this point, it's no longer about signals. It's about alignment. Her emotions, her body, her attention, all moving in the same direction, toward you. She becomes more nurturing, more attentive to your mood, more invested in your experience, not because she has to be, but because she wants to be. And that's the difference. When care becomes natural, it's real. If she opens up, you don't shut down out of uncertainty. If she becomes vulnerable, you don't dismiss it or rush past it. You hold space, because that's what she's been testing all along. Because true connection isn't about taking, it's about understanding. It's about recognizing what's being offered and meeting it with the same level of presence. So if you notice these signs, don't rush, don't force, don't try to control the outcome. Stay grounded, stay attentive, stay real. Because the moment you try to force something that's naturally unfolding, you break the very trust that allowed it to happen. And trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. A woman who feels safe, seen, and emotionally connected to you will move closer on her own. You won't have to chase, you won't have to guess, you'll feel it in her presence, in her energy, in the way she chooses to be with you. And when she reaches that point, where she no longer fears being alone with you, where she leans into your space instead of away from it, where her guard has softened and her trust is clear, she's already made her choice, not with words, but with everything she is. So if you've ever wondered whether it was real, whether those small moments meant something, they did. They always did. You just needed to understand the language. So here's what I want you to do before you leave. If this opened your eyes even a little, hit the like button, not just for the algorithm, but as a signal to yourself that you're starting to see things differently. Share this with someone who needs clarity in their relationships. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this is where we break down the psychology most people never talk about. And I want to leave you with one final question. Think about your past experiences. Was there ever a moment when someone showed you these signs, but you didn't recognize them at the time? What was it? Drop it in the comments, because your story might help someone else see what they've been missing. Because the more we talk about these things openly, the better we become at recognizing what's real. And remembering this, desire is quiet, connection is subtle, but when you learn to see it, you'll never miss it again.